Welcome to the Philosophy Zone, the podcast where we dive into the big ideas that shape how we think, live, and understand the world. Today we're stepping back into ancient Greece to explore the life and writings of one of the most towering figures in Western thought. Aristotle. His ideas are like a vast, intricate mosaic, complex, beautiful, and still shaping the way we see everything from science to ethics. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's take a journey through the mind of a man who, over 2,000 years ago, tried to make sense of the universe and our place in it. Let's start with Aristotle's life, because his story is as fascinating as his ideas. Born in 384 BC in a small town called Stagira in northern Greece, Aristotle didn't come from the hustle and bustle of Athens, the intellectual capital of the time. His father was a physician to the Macedonian royal family, which gave young Aristotle a front-row seat to the world of science and observation. He lost his parents early, and by 17 he was sent to Athens to study at Plato's academy, the Harvard of the ancient world. Imagine being a bright-eyed teenager, walking into a place buzzing with debates about truth, beauty, and the nature of reality. Mentored by Plato himself, a philosopher who thought the physical world was just a shadow of a higher realm of perfect forms. Aristotle spent about 20 years at the academy, soaking it all up, but he wasn't just Plato's yes man. He had his own way of thinking, more grounded, more curious about the nuts and bolts of the world. When Plato died, Aristotle didn't take over the academy, as some might have expected. Instead, he hit the road, traveling to places like Asia Minor, where he studied marine biology. Of all things, he was out there, knee-deep in tide pools, dissecting fish and squid, trying to understand life itself. This hands-on approach wasn't just a hobby, it shaped his philosophy. He believed you couldn't just think your way to truth. You had to look at the world, get your hands dirty, observe, and reason from there. Eventually, Aristotle ended up tutoring a young Macedonian prince named Alexander. Yes, that Alexander, the one who'd later conquer half the known world. It's wild to think about. Aristotle, this nerdy, inquisitive philosopher, trying to instill wisdom in a teenage future world conqueror. We don't know exactly what he taught Alexander, but we can imagine him trying to balance lessons on ethics and politics with Alexander's dreams of glory. After a few years, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato's academy, which was more about abstract debates, the Lyceum was a hub for research. Think of it as a proto-university, with Aristotle and his students collecting data, studying everything from plants to politics, and writing it all down. Now, let's get to his writings, because this is where Aristotle's genius really shines. He wrote on practically everything: logic, physics, biology, ethics, politics, art, you name it. His works weren't polished books like you'd find on a shelf today. They were more like lecture notes, dense and technical, meant for his students at the Lyceum. That's why reading Aristotle can feel like wading through a swamp sometimes. But once you get the hang of it, it's like discovering a treasure map. His ideas are so foundational that they're woven into the fabric of how we think, even if we don't realize it. Let's start with logic, because Aristotle basically invented it. Before him, people argued, sure, but it was messy, more like a shouting match than a science. Aristotle said, hold up, let's make this systematic. He developed the syllogism, a way of reasoning that's like the building block of clear thinking. Here's an example. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Sounds simple, right? But this was revolutionary. It gave people a tool to test whether their arguments held water. Even today, when you're debating with a friend or writing an essay, you're using Aristotle's logic without even knowing it. He gave us the scaffolding for rational thought. Then there's his take on the natural world. Unlike Plato, who thought the physical world was less real than some perfect realm of ideas, Aristotle was obsessed with what he could see, touch, and study. He looked at animals, plants, even the stars, and tried to figure out how they worked. In his book Physics, he asked big questions. Why do things move? What causes change? He came up with the idea of the four causes to explain why things exist the way they do. Take a wooden table. Its material cause is the wood it's made of. Its formal cause is its design, the table shape. Its efficient cause is the carpenter who built it. And its final cause is its purpose, to hold your coffee or your dinner. This way of thinking was Aristotle's attempt to crack the code of reality, to understand why things are the way they are. It laid the groundwork for what would eventually become modern science as we know it today. Now let's talk about ethics, because this is where Aristotle gets really personal. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he asks, what's the good life? How do we live well? For Aristotle, the answer wasn't about following strict rules or chasing pleasure. He said the good life is about finding balance, what he called the golden mean. Courage, for example, is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity is the mean between stinginess and extravagance. It's not about being perfect. It's about practicing good habits until they become second nature. This idea is so practical, you can apply it to your own life, whether you're trying to be a better friend or manage your temper. Aristotle wasn't preaching from an ivory tower. He was saying, look, we're all human, we're all messy, but we can get better by aiming for balance. He also had this big idea called eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but really meaning something deeper, like flourishing. For Aristotle, flourishing isn't about fleeting pleasures, like eating a whole pizza or binge-watching a series. It's about living in a way that fulfills your potential as a human being, using your reason, building good relationships, contributing to your community. It's a vision of happiness that's active, not passive, and it's still one of the most compelling ideas about what makes life worth living. Let's not skip politics, because Aristotle saw humans as political animals. In his book, Politics, he says we're wired to live in communities, to work together to create a good society. He studied different kinds of governments, monarchies, democracies, aristocracies, and weighed their pros and cons. He wasn't a cheerleader for any one system. He wanted a government that promoted the common good, not just the interests of the powerful. Sound familiar? A lot of modern ideas about justice and citizenship trace back to Aristotle's thoughts on how we live together. And then there's his take on art and literature in his work Poetics. If you've ever heard of a tragic hero or the idea that stories should have a beginning, middle, and end, you've got Aristotle to thank. He analyzed Greek tragedies and said they work because they stir emotions like pity and fear, helping us process the messiness of life. It's why we're still glued to dramas today. Aristotle figured out the recipe for a good story. What's amazing about Aristotle is how his ideas connect. His logic underpins his science informs his ethics, and his ethics shape his politics. It's like he was trying to build a unified theory of everything, long before Einstein or anyone else. But he wasn't perfect. He got plenty wrong, like his belief that the Earth was the center of the universe, or some pretty outdated views on women and slavery. We don't worship Aristotle. We learn from him, flaws and all. So why does Aristotle matter today? His ideas are like a toolbox we're still using. Scientists still build on his curiosity about the natural world. Philosophers and psychologists still wrestle with his ideas about happiness and virtue. Even our legal systems and democracies owe something to his thoughts on justice and community. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a teacher who wanted his students and us to ask questions, observe the world, and reason our way to a better life. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge from Aristotle's spirit. Go out and observe something today. Look at a tree, a conversation, or even your own choices and ask, why is it like this? How could it be better? That's the Aristotelian way. Curious, practical, and always searching for truth. Thanks for joining me in the Philosophy Zone. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next episode.